Charlie's Lessons by R.K. Vedder. Chapter 4. I hate chickens, I muttered as I turned toward the kitchen door with our battered yellow wire egg basket over my arm. What was that? Mom asked. We weren't supposed to mutter in my family. If you said something, you were supposed to say it loud enough for everybody to hear. Basic respect is what Dad called it. I turned reluctantly back to face Mom. I hate chickens. That egg money is where you get your Saturday night dime. I knew I'd be reminded of that. Not to mention clothes and groceries and, I'm sorry, I already knew we barely scraped by most weeks on egg money. It's just that they're so mean. Are you afraid of those old squawkers at your age? I blushed. I was 9, working up to a July 10, and it was a fear I could not explain. Mom must have really looked at my face. Okay, she relented. I'll finish this last pan and I'll go out with you. Try to give you some pointers. Mom threw off her apron after drying her hands on it and gave me an after you gesture. We walked with a purpose out of our immediate house yard and past the old house that Grandpa and Grandma Burke had left behind when they moved to town. I remembered how Grandma Burke used all authority on her chickens. She would step to the nest, toss a hen out, and retrieve the eggs in one smooth motion. Feathers flew when Grandma was in the chicken house. So it wasn't really the roosters who ruled the roost, it was Grandma Burke. We continued on past the garage and the sheep pens and made a right turn for the chicken houses. Okay, Mom got directly to the point as we stepped into the duskiness of the first house. Show me how you do it. I carefully approached the wooden nesting boxes nailed to the wall. The first nest was chickenless, so all I had to do was gather the eggs. The second nest held a chicken, but she must have noticed my resemblance to Grandma Burke. She gave a frantic squawk and flapped to the henhouse floor. Then I came to the chicken with a reputation. She liked things the way she liked things, and she wasn't about to move off her nest for anyone to take her eggs. She had been eyeing us the whole time, ready to strike with snake-like accuracy. Her sharp beak and her agile neck made for a painful attack upon any hand brave enough to be close to her nest. She would even peck a hand moving into the nests next to her, above her, or below. She was a fiendish fowl, and I stood frozen before her. I'd use both hands on her, Mom advised. Move in quick with one hand on top of her head, and use the other hand to pluck her out of there. I could see Mom was not going to save me from this chore, nor had I been raised with the right of refusal. I asked Charlie once for her advice on gathering eggs. I don't do eggs, she answered dismissively. Don't you have chickens? I persisted. We have chickens. Charlie held up her pointer finger. I don't like chickens. Charlie held up a second finger. I don't do chicken chores. Charlie held up a third finger. Her point was made. But that lesson was wasted on me. Charlie had the right of refusal. The kids at our house didn't. She's a setter, Mom was spouting feather philosophy. We can't afford to let her set her eggs. Eggs are money. Even if she hatched the eggs, the chicks wouldn't make it in here. I knew she was right. I had seen my share of frowsy, puffy-breasted chicks begin to feather out, only to become cannibalized by their elders. I was eyeball to eyeball with that chicken demon. She glared at me, ready to deliver. I counted inside my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I pushed the biddy's head down with my right hand and gathered back feathers in my left. I gripped and tossed. The buff-colored bully flapped and scolded to the other side of the henhouse. Mom laughed. She's still running the sermon on you, Kate. I'll bet if we could understand chicken talk, our faces would be red. All that for nothing, I answered in disgust. There aren't even any eggs in this nest. I have to get back and start the meal, Mom said from the doorway. Get going, Kate. There's another hen house after this one, you know. Mom seemed to be an expert at stating the obvious. She turned back. Keep an eye out for that egg eater. I finished the first house with the egg bucket half full and stepped out into the fresh air. Cat was waiting for me. We didn't expend much thought on names for farm animals. Don't get attached, was Dad's best advice. They can be leaving your life just as fast as they entered it. The gray-striped male purred and firmly butted his head against my leg, hoping for my time and attention. Hi, Cat. Nice kitty, I said in my high-pitched, for cats only voice. Cat unabashedly flopped to the straw and wriggled into several silly poses. I obliged him by massaging his round tummy. He closed his eyes, worked his paws, and purred loudly. I sat him on my shoulder. Cat had grown up riding my family members from place to place. His favorite mode of transportation was atop a head, but the head had to have a parka hood on it because Cat was a farm cat with all of his claws. I let Cat ride to the next henhouse, then dipped my shoulder and stooped to drop him off. He hightailed me and swaggered off to lick his fur smooth again. I unlatched the second henhouse. I figured these chickens knew what was coming. They had already heard someone in the neighboring house. I would have to show them who was boss. I turned the light on against the dimness. I didn't want to be surprised by a snake in a nest. I set the basket down gently on the straw and began to systematically empty the dark nests. I was cursed out by hen after hen. Then I noticed a hen standing in a nest. She had beaked open an egg and was hurriedly pecking out the contents. There was another empty shell beside her. You have oyster shell, you know, I muttered. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let this chicken mix with the rest. She would be lost in the chicken crowd, unidentifiable, and would continue to prey on our eggs. I could either hold her captive in the nest or catch and carry. I considered my options. A chicken hook hung above the nests. I was too close to use that long hook on this chicken. I had to figure out a way to mark her in case she got away. Since I was racking my brain, I reached up to scratch my head. My fingers met with a possible solution. The hen was standing on the roosting bar, ready to flap down amongst her friends. I shooed her back into the nest, and with a minimum of struggle, I felt satisfied she could be ID'd if she left the nest. Carefully lifting the egg bucket, I hurried to the door with it. John and Sam were coming down from the corn crib, where they'd been pitching ears of corn to pigs. John, I shouted out the door, I know which hen is the egg eater. She ate an egg right in front of me. Dad, John hollered at the barn. Kate saw the egg eater. He started through the chicken yard gate. Stay out here with Cat, Sam. I stepped back into the chicken house, and John followed. How do you know which one she is? She's the one wearing the blue beret, I pointed. John snickered at the sight of the hen with a big blue beret clamped to her tail feathers. Dad stuck his head in the door. Where is she? Kate lent her a blue beret. John pointed this time. Dad spotted her and chuckled. He hauled down the chicken hook and hooked her around the feet. He dragged her to him, preaching and flapping. She still has yolk on her beak. Dad secured her feet and sat her backwards with her head under his arm to calm her. We'll house her in a cage tonight. Clue close to supper to dress her out now. John, get a little water. She's already had her last meal. Dad knew the only way to deal with an egg eater was to serve her up at the table. Here's your beret, Kate. That'll need an alcohol bath before you wear it again. He chuckled again. That was really using your head. I smiled, took my beret from Dad, and pocketed it. That was the first time I had ever smiled while I was in a chicken house. John, you can help Kate finish with the eggs, and I'll take Sam to the house. I'll see you in a few minutes. Dad motioned to Sam. Sam stood up. I had Cat's motor in high gear. Cat enjoys your visit, Sam. Dad put his arm around his younger son as they walked on together. I hate chickens. I wasn't mumbling this time as I raked 2 more eggs out of a nest. The worst they can do is peck you. John was waiting patiently, holding the egg bucket. It hurts, I whined. There were still 2 rows of nests left. Well, wear some chore gloves, John said in his easygoing way. They'll get more blood, less you. Nobody else wears gloves. I felt like a failure. You have to be you, Kate. John was hugging the precious weight of the egg basket to his torso. And you are the best sister I have. I smiled for the second time ever while I was in a chicken house.